Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of the Not Your Everyday MMA podcast. If you're new here, my name's Alex Henry, and I'm with Tori Haverl, and we just break down MMA fights every week. We talk about up-and-coming fights. We talk about pound-for-pound lists, all this good stuff, top fives. So if you're new to the channel, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the comments. Hit the comments, Tori.
Hit the comments.
Hit the comments.
I mean, we talk about the most exciting thing. And speaking of exciting things, the card we have been all waiting for how many months? Like 5 or 6?
Forever.
Is this Saturday.
Feels
and
like
I
forever.
am so excited. It feels like forever since the last time we saw Charles Oliveira fight. And since this fight got announced, I think we've all been dying to see it. And I am so excited for today's episode.
Yeah, 100%. The card for the fans is how I would describe this. It's not necessarily the biggest name value draw, but people who are real fans know these guys and they want to watch these fights, except Sean O'Malley. He's a name value pull in, I would say.
Sure.
But yeah, very excited. We're going to run through the prelims first, and then we will get to the main card, which is probably why you guys are here. You want to hear that main card, those main card predictions. So, Tori, I will throw it to you. What is the first fight?
The first fight is going to be in the welterweight division. It is also these names, guys, real quick. Like, they are real hard to pronounce. Okay, dude, we are trying our best.
They are very hard.
I'm so bad at pronouncing names, so I apologize in advance. I'm working on it. We're working on it. Abubakar, I believe, Nurmagomedov versus Gadzhi Omargadzhiev. Once again, these names, they're not easy. They're not easy at all.
No, they're not.
So, I mean, if you would, Alex, what's your breakdown of this fight so far?
Yeah, so Abubakar is what are my notes? Oh, he's my favorite style of wrestler. I wrote it really weird though, but he, in terms of where he likes to strike with you and then gets you to that point and then takes you down. I really like those guys that'll just come in, throw with a lot of volume, go for the takedown. I think it's chef's kiss. Beautiful, beautiful technique. Gadzhi is pretty much the same exact thing. He's somebody who's a pretty average striker who comes in and then tries to get things on the ground. These guys are low-key the same fighter, Tori, and that's what kind of makes this pick hard. I think Abubakar is a better wrestler, but Gadzhi has good ground and pound and submission. So if he can get to that position, and I think he will, I'm taking Gadzhi here, which I'm pretty sure is the underdog. So taking a little underdog pick.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It is a harder matchup. I mean, when looking at the stats, you have Nurmagomedov, who's 6-1 with knockouts, 4-2 submissions, 2-1 in his past 5 fights, and then Gadzhi, who's 8-0 with knockouts, 3-0 submissions, and 4-1 in his last fights. And I mean, originally I did have Nurmagomedov winning, but the more I look at it and how I kind of heard you, the more I think I'm going to go with Gadzhi instead of Nurmagomedov. Just because if he can keep the fight on the floor, I think he'll have a lot more success. If it does stay standing, I think I'm going to have to go with Nurmagomedov. But, I mean, last fight, the reason why I'm kind of switching in between is Nurmagomedov, he outstruck his opponent. He's one of those people who's mainly a wrestling base, but he can stand and strike with his opponents. I think he has more of the ability to stand and strike than Gadzhi does. Both of them have wrestling bases. Nurmagomedov has really good ground and pound, and so does Gadzhi. I mean, it's really pick 'em fight. I'm really thinking on this one. I mean, you know what? I think I'm gonna actually no. I think I'm gonna stay with Nurmagomedov in this one. I just think he has a little bit more experience, and I just to switch it up a little bit. I think he might have a little more success. I think he's a better striker, and I think that's where he might find a little bit more success.
No, yeah, I don't blame you, and I feel like we might be able to agree that a lot of these prelims, at least like 3 or 4, are toss-ups. Like, they're literally just like 50-50 pick'ems. Like, it's kind of hard to pick who you actually think. And that means the matchmakers are doing their job. That's kind of how I feel. I feel like if it's a hard fight to pick who wins, it's a good fight to make. So the next fight is Magomed Mustafaev taking on Yamato Nishikawa.
Good. Nishikawa.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Tori, give me your breakdown and predictions on this fight.
I mean, first you have Mustafaev, who's 14-4, and he has 10-0 with knockouts. That's kind of it's an important mark. 4-2 with submissions, and he's 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Then you have Nishikawa, who's first of all is 19 years old. This is his UFC debut. He began his professional career at the age of 13 in MMA, which is crazy.
Wow.
He's 14-2 with knockouts, 4-0 submissions, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. This is his first fight in the UFC. Right off the bat, I think I'm gonna go with Musa. I think it's Mustafaev. He's a dangerous striker. He has a wrestling base, and he does have a knockout win against Rafael Fiziev. That's a very important mark.
Interesting. Yeah.
Nishikawa, they're kind of throwing him in with the dog stare right off the bat. I mean, I kind of feel bad for the kid. I don't see it going the distance. I see Mustafaev kind of getting Nishikawa out of there. I mean, he's looked hittable his past couple of fights. He's kind of a one-base fighter. He has really good submission game, just really good ground game. But he's one of those BJJ fighters who's always looking for submission, and sometimes that's not great, you know. And so, I mean, I think I'm gonna have to go with Magomed. He just has more experience, but he has been out for a little bit, and overall I think he's a better fighter, and I just think he's gonna give Nishikawa a run for his money in his UFC debut.
Yeah, I mean, Magomed is the favorite by quite a bit, I think, and that's who I'm gonna go with. He hasn't fought in 3 years, and when
Yeah.
he did fight, he was 1-3 in his last 4. So really not that good, but stylistically, he's a good striker, and he has wrestling when he needs it. Yamato is a decent striker, decent ground game. He's kind of like how I described Tai Tuivasa, except definitely not the same weight class, but
Yeah.
just in
Yeah.
terms of a good cage fighter overall, but not really crazy good in any particular area. And he's 19 years old, which you mentioned. I'm going with Magomed here. I think he's a safe pick. Um, Obviously there are worries there, his time off, his losses, but this is a
Yeah.
fight that as a veteran he should be able to win. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Magomed Mustafaev here.
Here go another agreement. Let's see. Alrighty. Next we have a featherweight bout between Zubaira Tukhugov versus Lucas Almeida. What do you think about this fight?
Zubaira has really solid wrestling. He chases the takedown. His stand-up game, though, very, very rough. Not the prettiest thing I've seen. Lucas loves to strike, throws with volume and power. He controls the pace, and he has a really heavy cross when he throws it. This is another one of those picks, Tori, where it's kind of a toss-up for me.
Yeah.
If Zubaira can get it on the ground, then I think that's an easy dub. But if not, Lucas wins. So I'm gonna pick Zubaira. I expect him to get it on the ground, but at the same time, if he can't, it's probably gonna be Almeida. So I'm going with Zubaira overall.
Oh wow. I'm gonna disagree with you on this one. I mean, Zubaira overall, like you said, he has good wrestling, but he doesn't use it all the time. If that makes sense. Sometimes kind of his back pocket a little bit. He has quick hands. I mean, he's kind of a boxing base, but I just think overall Almeida is the better overall like mixed martial artist. He's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. He's a pretty good striker. He does have the height and range advantage. I think he's going to use very well. He throws really good kicks. He always, I guess I said before, he just uses his range well in and out, and he kind of has like a wildish fighting style. And I just think he's fun. And I mean, if you look at his stats, he has never been finished. He's 9-0 knockouts, 5-0 submissions. Whereas Tukhugov, but I can't. You know what? We're just gonna say Zubaira. Zubaira is, I mean, 7-1 knockouts and 1-1 submissions. And Almeida just looked good in his past couple of fights. He's from the Dana White Contender Series. He won his last fight by a third round knockout. So I'm gonna go with Almeida on this one.
No, it's not a bad pick. I mean, it's like I said, it's really a toss up for me, and I can't disagree with anybody who is gonna pick Almeida here.
Yeah.
So are we on to Volkan now?
Yes, we are.
Next fight, Volkan Oezdemir taking on Nikita Krylov. Tori, give me your breakdown and predictions on this fight.
I am very excited for this fight. I mean, especially since we saw them two on the last card in UFC London. This is a pick-em fight for me. You have Oezdemir, who's 18-6-0, 12-0 with knockouts, 1-2 submissions. He did win his last fight against Paul Craig at UFC London, but he does have losses to Makhmud and Ankalaev and Yuri Prohashka. And then you have Nikita Krylov, 28-9, 11-0 with knockouts, 15-6 with submissions, and he's 2-2 in his last fights. He just unfortunately, what's the sad moment, knocked out Alexander Gustafsson at UC London by round 1 knockout. He does have a loss to Paul Craig, whereas Oezdemir does have a win against Paul Craig. He has lost to Ankalaev as well, and also a loss to Teixeira. This fight is very hard for me to pick. When I was kind of researching and watching some old tape, especially the last 2 fights, it was more difficult because the Craig fight was kind of the determiner. And I know like MMA math doesn't work, but sometimes it does. Okay, so I'm going to use this fight as kind of a lean way. So Oezdemir had a rough time with, he went to decision, he beat him, but he had a little bit of a rough time. He couldn't quite get his hands on him, even though Paul Craig did end up losing. Paul Craig was kind of constantly looking for submission, and Oezdemir just, it was kind of a random, a weird fight. And I mean, Krylov, he did lose to Oezdemir, but I believe if he didn't play into Craig's ground game, I mean, Krylov didn't lose to Oezdemir, he lost to Paul Craig. If he didn't play into Craig's ground game, he could have gotten it done. So I'm gonna go with Krylov on this one, and I don't really fully have a reason. I just all think he's the better fighter, if that makes sense. I mean, Oezdemir, he has power in his hands, but he doesn't necessarily have knockout power like he used to. And Krylov has knockout power. He's longer, he's taller, he's well-rounded. And I just think if he can kind of keep it at a distance and he just stays quick on his feet, I think he can get it done. And I don't really have like a full reason. I just, watching their 2 last fights, I think Krylov can get it done.
Yeah, Krylov, in my opinion, I would agree with you, Tori, is the more well-rounded fighter. He's a good striker, he's a good wrestler. But to me, hasn't been the most impressive fighter. Obviously, his last win was a big win for him. But besides that win, and even in that fight, nothing crazy kind of stands out to me. And I feel like that is kind of a reason why it's kind of hard to pick or say why you think he's going to win, because I couldn't tell you why. Volkan, he's another good striker, has good forward pressure, lots of volume. He also has an 84% takedown defense, which really helps him a lot because he's not that good on the ground. This is another toss-up. Like, literally, I feel like that's like my 3rd toss-up now.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Volkan here, strictly because he's a more vetted MMA fighter, but I could really see this fight going either way, Tori.
No, it's an interesting matchup. And I mean, I'm excited to see it, just especially I feel like they're just kind of at the same level right now.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited to see who wins and what's next for them in their career. And so next we have a middleweight bout. I'm very excited for this one. And we have Makhmud Muradov versus Caio Borralho. What are your thoughts on this fight?
Makhmud, he's a great striker, has a good jab, good leg kicks. He isn't too bad on the ground, but he likes to work it back up to his feet if things do go to the mat. Caio likes to grapple, likes to try and submit you. His wrestling's elite. He's got 80% takedown accuracy, averages 2.63 takedowns a fight, and a 75% takedown defense. And his BJJ is really good when he shows it off. Caio's look good as of late. His strikes are on point in his ground game. So I'm going to give it to him in this one to beat Makhmud.
I agree with you here. I'm a big fan of Borralho just because I like his tattoos. I think he has cool tattoos. I think it says free spirit. I'm not for sure, but I think it looks sick. Anyway,
Sorry, that's a casual thing to say.
Okay, you know what?
Casual fan. You only like him because his tattoos.
No, and overall, I think he is the better fighter. I'm just saying his tattoos give him a little bit of an edge. Just anyways, it looks sick. Okay, what worried me the most is that Muradov lost to Mearshart last fight by a rear naked choke, and just how good Borralho's jiu-jitsu is and how good his ability to get fights to the ground is. I think it's going to be a big problem for Muradov. I mean, Borralho has a karate style. He's in and out, and he has a very good sub game. Sorry, I just knocked my microphone. And he is also a good striker and also a good counter striker. Muradov has power. He has a boxing style. He hits hard. So I think if Borralho can kind of keep it at a distance and then just go for those takedowns and get into the floor, I think he can get it done easily. I just overall think he's a better fighter, and I think the ground game is going to be really dangerous. It's exciting. It's a competitive matchup. This is another kind of pick 'em because if Muradov can keep it standing, he might be able to get it done. But I think Borralho can. I think he can take it, and he's looking real good recently. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Borralho on that one.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I agree with you. And that fight right there is really where I start getting excited for this card. That's like where things really start to heat up.
Yeah. Yeah.
AJ Dobson, we didn't talk about him. Excited for his fight. Ohio boy, Mortal Kombat down in like Columbus, not too far from here. So I know a lot of guys from the gym. Gonna be cheering for him. Didn't talk about him. Maybe he'll come on this podcast one day. I would love to have him if he ever responds to my DM. So the next fight,
Is when
which
it starts.
should really be a main card fight, but I'm not gonna complain too much. It's whatever, it's fine. Card stacked as is, so it's not doesn't matter if it's on the main card or the prelims. Belal Muhammad is taking on Sean Brady. Tori, give me your breakdown and predictions on this fight.
I'm very excited for this fight. Obviously, we have Belal, who's 21-3-0. He has 4-0 knockouts and 1-0 submissions. And I feel bad for him because I'm part of this because people love to make fun of Belal Muhammad, and I've definitely done it before, and I won't make fun of him anymore after this. I promise. And then you have Sean Brady, 15-0, clearly undefeated, 3-0 knockouts and 4-0 submissions. Both these guys are kind of known to be, I didn't say it, this isn't my source, this is kind of the realm, decision fighters. You know what I mean? They use the wrestling to their advantage, both of them. They have good control time. So I'm excited to see Belal really not versus striker because we saw him against Vicente Luque, we saw him against Stephen Thompson, and those are kind of matchups to his advantage because he know he can take them and he know he can control them. And so I'm excited for this fight. Right off the bat, I think I'm gonna go with I think we can go with Belal on this one. Some people are like disagreeing with me. I overall just think he's more experienced. He's training with Khabib Nurmagomedov, which is always just oh, you better watch out. Someone's training with Khabib Nurmagomedov. You know, he just has. I mean, both of them have great wrestling. Belal has such good control time. He has pretty good straight shots that we've been seeing recently. He has very good 5-round cardio that we have seen in his past two fights, and he's always looking for the takedown. And I mean, he throws good body strikes, and overall I think he's just the more technical striker, whereas Brady, he's more fun in his striking. I think he's more fun to watch in striking because he's kind of wild and explosive a little bit. He has good wrestling, but he does tend to gas out a little bit. So I think the first round is really when Belal's going to have to watch out because that's when Brady's going to be at his strongest. He's going to be constantly moving forward, just using that pressure. And so I think after that, if Belal can get through the first round, I think he can use his wrestling, take Brady in the clinch and just control him there. I mean, it's going to be a fun wrestler versus wrestler match. I don't know. I'm excited. Brady does have a little bit better submission skills, but overall, I think Belal's going to take it by decision. I just think he's more experienced, and overall, I think he has a gas tank, even though it is only 3 rounds. And I mean, but this is also a pick and fight. It could go either way. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Brady won. I just feel bad because I've kind of bagged on Belal before, so I feel like I support him in this one.
You owe him. You owe him a pick.
I owe him a pick. I'm sorry, Belal. I've made fun of you sometimes. I promise I didn't mean it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Belal. I mean, very clean striker, good power, but like you mentioned, he likes to wrestle. When he wants to get it on the ground, and you talked about how he's always capitalized on the disadvantage of the other fighter, and it's really important because a lot of fighters don't do that. They'll just, if they're better on the ground, but they get in a striking match, they're just gonna stay in a striking match because I'm cocky and I'm a striker and I can beat you striking. Brady is also good striker. Can be very dangerous on the ground, and that's kind of where he wants to take you. So both of these guys like it on the ground, but Tori, you mentioned the way to win this fight, and it's that Brady's cardio isn't really there, and Belal has good pressure. I think, maybe an unpopular opinion, Brady might be the better wrestler overall.
Yeah.
At least from what I've seen, Brady might be a better wrestler, but in terms of his cardio and in terms of the pressure that Muhammad applies, I think that he's able to wear a guy like Brady out and get a good win here. So I'm also going to go Belal Muhammad.
Yeah, I mean, overall, he's just a more experienced fighter. Like you said, it could go either way. And Brady, I was watching some tape. I do think he kind of is a better wrestler. I just think Belal knows how to use it more.
Yeah.
I think Belal knows how to use his wrestling better, if that makes, I couldn't think of the word, meaning he doesn't waste out his cardio. He knows what to do and when to do it. He knows how to hold you down and keep you there. Belal's great at doing what Belal does, so this fight's really interesting because they're kind of the same fighting style. So I think whoever wins this is kind of going to determine who's the wrestler in this division, other than Kamaru Usman, obviously. But you know what I mean, below Kamaru Usman. So I'm excited for this fight. It's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, definitely going to be a fun one.
Alrighty, so for the main card of the
Main card
evening.
time.
Main card. I'm so excited. Let's go. We have Katlyn Chookagian versus Manon. There's multiple different ways of saying it. I'm like Fiorot. Wait, Fiorot. Fiorot.
I've always said Fiorot. I've heard it was Fior today.
Fior. Okay, we'll go with Fior. If John Anik said Fior, then I think I'm gonna go
Couldn't tell you. Could not
Let's
tell
go
you.
with
That
Fior.
man does pride himself in pronouncing names right. I do not.
So,
I pride myself in messing them up, actually. I'm the opposite of Anik, but Tori, I will give you my breakdown.
Yes.
Katlyn is a really good boxer who's lost to very tough opponents. Tori, she needs to win this fight and maybe one or two more if she wants another shot at the title. If she loses, probably her last go around. She's getting a little old for the division. Not old as in terms of an MMA fighter, but in terms of the young talent that's there. She's gonna start being that one to beat to build your resume. Looking at Fior though, if she can win this fight, she is able to make an argument that she has a shot at the title. Stylistically, she's a really busy striker. Throws with a lot of power, has an 83% takedown defense. It can go to the ground as well if it needs to. I think Katlyn is a really good fighter. I think she should win. She's kind of been the
underdog.
The underdog killer is what I would say, actually. Like as new fighter, the prospect killer.
Yeah.
So when there's a new prospect, they got to go through Chookagian, and they usually don't. So this is one of those instances, but I think, Tori, her time might be up. And I think Fior is the one that will beat her. And out of all these up-and-coming fighters, I don't think that Fior is like the other girls. She's no joke. And I think that stylistically, she might be better too. The only thing I'm worried about is fighter IQ. And Katlyn has more experience in the cage than Fior. But I will be going with Fior in this one.
Yeah, this is also a very hard fight to pick. I mean, I already had my pick, but I'm not even like, it's hard to say who I would think is going to win because like, if I don't even fully believe myself, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I can say someone's going to win, but I honestly have no idea. Once again, like, I mean, I'm kind of rooting for Chookagian, but at the same time, like, I kind of want the prospect to win. Like, I don't know. It's honestly a pick and fight because if you look at Chookagian, she has fought every contender, I believe, ever in the flyweight division. Between the two Shevchenko sisters, Wood, Maya, Jessica I, Aldana, Murphy, Ribas, Maya once again, Arujo, Caio, Jessica Andrade. She has, I think, everyone ever in the flyweight division she has fought, and she's only lost to Andrade, Shevchenko, and Jessica I past couple years. I think she, once again, I don't know. I'm like, I think she could be able to take it just because of her experience.
Right.
I mean, she has good kicks. She's dangerous everywhere. Her only loss was in her professional MMA debut. She dominated against Maya. She uses her takedowns very well. She has good power and good attacks. And then Chookagian, she is obviously the number one ranked contender within this division, the gatekeeper. She has good cardio, reach advantage. She's just overall a lot more experience. She can mix in her grappling well, but she can get taken down. And when she gets taken down, she gets controlled. And so that's another thing to watch out. But she uses her footwork well. And I just think if she wants to win this fight, she needs to stay at range. And because she's a good counter striker, so she wants to win. I think she needs to stay at range. Whereas Manon, if she wants to win, I think she just has to use her pressure. Do you know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, it's like, I don't know. So I'm just going to flip a coin. And you know what? I think I'm just going to go with Chookagian. I think I'm going to go with the vet. That's just gone through everyone. I think not really fully have a reason just right now. I think that's going to be my pick. It might change in a day on my verdict app, but who knows? But for right now, I'm going to go with Chookagian.
Right. I mean, my entire basis is that Father Time is ticking on Katlyn Chookagian, and I have no reason to think that. She hasn't proven why. She hasn't proven to me that I should be like, oh, her time's coming. She still looks great. Still looks like she could be a title contender. I'm just like, nope, this is her time.
Yeah.
So,
it's a hard fight to pick. Yeah.
It's not really like I'm the most confident in my pick either, but I do really think that Fiorot does have a real chance compared to the other prospects that Chookagian has buried to beat her. And it's kind of like if there's going to be someone to do it, it's going to be Fiorot, so that's kind of why I'm picking Fiorot. So it's not necessarily that I'm not confident in this fight either. Yeah. But on to the next fight, Tori. We got Beneil Dariush taking on Mateusz Gamrot. Yeah. Gamrot. Gamrot?
Gamrot.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Who do you got, Tori?
I'm excited for this fight. I'm a Beneil Dariush fan. Okay. He trains where I live. He trains where I live. Like he trains at King's MMA. He's coming to eat at the restaurant I work at before. Okay, I died. I'm a Beneil Dariush fan, and I think he deserves this shot. And honestly, I don't even think he should have said yes to this fight. I think he could have waited. He deserves to be up there, and he didn't have to take the new upcoming fight. You know what I mean? He didn't have to take almost like a Sandhagen versus Song Yadong. He didn't need to do this. He could have waited, but he didn't because he's a cool guy. And anyways, on to the breakdown. Dariush is 21 wins, 4 losses, 5-3 knockouts, 8-1 with submissions, 5-0 in his last fights. His last win, as we know, was against Tony Ferguson about a year and like a couple months ago because he did get injured. And then you have Gamrot, 21, 1-0, 7-0 knockouts, 5-0 submissions, 4-1 in his last fight. These fighters are very similar as well. It reminds me of the Belal versus Brady, 1000%. It's like the same thing, just in a different division. I mean, Dariush, he's on, I believe, a 7-fight win streak now. He is amazing on the ground. And I think the big difference between these two fighters is Beneil on their ground game is Gamrot is a ground and pound guy. He will look to get that top position and start pounding on you, whereas Dariush is always looking for the submission. Once you hit the floor, he's switching up different things, and he will always try to grab a limb or your neck or something to get that submission victory. I mean, I think overall Dariush, actually, I think he has the better ground game just because of how good his submissions can be. He has a little bit more of a wild striking style, whereas Gamrot is a little bit more technical when it comes to striking. Gamrot has really good pace in fights. He has a submission win against Jeremy Stephens, his last fight against Tsarkin. I always suck at pronouncing names, but that was his last one. He looked good in that fight. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He has good wrestling. He's just overall well-rounded. Dariush, I think he has better striking defense. And so that when you're looking at the stats, Dariush has less strikes absorbed than Gamrot and more strikes landed than Gamrot. So overall in the striking, I think is going to go to Dariush. The thing that Dariush is going to have to look out for is the wrestling and using his wrestling defense. But I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem just because of how good and how he fully can get a submission from anywhere. And he will work until he gets it, like until he finds it. It's amazing. And so I just think it's a pick 'em fight once again. I think I'm going to go with Dariush. Overall, I just think he's more experienced. I think he deserves it more. I think he wants it more. I think he's hungry. And I know Gamrot is still upcoming. And I think Dariush has more to lose in this fight because if he loses, he's going to be out of contention. Whereas Gamrot, it's like he faced a higher contender. I think he blah, blah, blah. But I think I'm going to go Dariush on this one. I think he might be able to submit Gamrot maybe. But overall, I just think IQ is better.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad breakdown, Tori. I would say that Beneil is the most overlooked fighter in the UFC. Not most underrated, even though underrated and overlooked are very similar. I mean that he's proven how good he is.
Yeah.
And people still overlook him, whereas underrated would be like, they haven't improved much, or maybe they have, but it's not really rated at a good value. Therefore underrated. I would say Beneil is the most overlooked fighter in the UFC. He is on a very impressive 7-fight winning streak. He's a great wrestler, BJJ black belt, great striker. If he would have taken Islam when they were supposed to fight.
I was so mad about that. I was so sad.
I don't know who would have won that fight, Tori. I really could not tell you. At least if I was predicting it back then. If I was predicting it now, I probably would have a better guess. But back then, couldn't tell you, honestly.
Yeah.
Gamrot, good striker who will throw just about anything, and he has shown that he has knockout power. And you mentioned that Beneil is maybe the better striker, but I think Gamrot has way more power in his hands than Beneil does. Averages over 4 takedowns a fight, and it has a 90% takedown defense, which is going to be very, very important in this fight.
Yes.
If Beneil was fighting anybody else in the weight class, I think I'd probably take it. But I think Gamrot is the next guy up. And I think he's just looked really good. And I think he might be better than Beneil in almost every category except maybe Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But I think he is a better wrestler. And overall, I think he is a better striker. So I don't like the pick because I really like Beneil more.
Yeah.
But as an analyst, I gotta take Gamrot here.
It's hard. I mean, you were mentioning like there's some things that like also sometimes hearing other people like say it, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like just because the power and the fact that Dariush has gotten knocked out before. He has gotten knocked out 3 times in his career, and Gamrot really hasn't been finished. And so I mean, that does worry me a little bit. As you were saying that, I was kind of thinking, I was like, oh, like I was like, maybe I think Gamrot, he does have the ability to knock Dariush out. I think he could. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but if that doesn't happen, almost just as a fan, my heart's going with Dariush. I think I don't necessarily like. I think I just want him to win. I think he deserves it. And really quick, I had never looked forward to a fight more than Islam versus Dariush, but we're almost getting the better version of that now. We'll talk about that later. But I was so excited for that fight, and I was so sad that it did not happen. Anyways, but I think Gamrot is probably the one of the biggest threats to Dariush. We'll see how it goes. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm excited. I think Dariush, if he looks for those submissions too much, I think he could get caught. But I mean, who knows? I think I'm gonna stick with Dariush for this one, but Gamrot definitely has a good chance. He could take that away from him as well. So it's gonna be fun. Alrighty, for the co-main event, because this isn't just a fight on the card. This is the Coco main event.
The
Coco main event. Yeah, Petr Yan versus the Sugar Show.
Yeah.
Let's hear what you think about this fight.
Tori is a hard fight for me as a fan because I love both of these fighters a lot. Petr Yan has one of the best Muay Thai style. He's one of the best Muay Thai style fighters there is in the UFC.
Yeah.
His guard does with a lot of intent, volume, has a good 90% takedown defense. I think one of his greatest strengths, though, that doesn't get talked about nearly enough with Petr Yan is his cardio and his durability. He is able to stick in a 25-minute fight if he has to, and he can take a lot of blows and be okay. And that is so important when you're talking about Petr Yan, and it doesn't get mentioned enough. He's also really good at checking range. Petr Yan's kind of a shorter guy too, and that's kind of weird because you don't see that as much. But you'll see him here. This is how his guard is. This is how his Petr Yan guard impression. And he'll do a lot of these.
Always sucky. Yeah.
And he'll do this, and at first you're like, wow, he's just trying to set up a nice cross. He's feinting. No, he's range checking, and he'll do it a million times, and that's going to be very important versus a guy like Sugar Show. Sean O'Malley, on the other hand, is the hardest fighter to figure out in the UFC. And Tim Welch is the man when it comes to coaching this dude, Sean O'Malley. Because Sean O'Malley had no combat sport background, not even karate as a kid, not even wrestling in middle school. He jumped straight into MMA, and he was able to carve out a style that he likes that's very unique to him, where his striking is so diverse everywhere, his range is so good, and he looks like the skinny, scrawny kid, but he throws with real power. He likes to trap his opponents. He likes to throw good feints. And, I mean, he's just really good. He's also one of my favorite fighters, Tori. And if
Petr Yan hasn't fought a number one contender, that's the problem.
He hasn't.
It's a hard one.
If Petr Yan wasn't on a losing skid, I might convince myself to pick Sean O'Malley. But I don't know if Petr Yan is going to be able to figure out O'Malley in a 3-round fight. I've talked about it before. Petr Yan's a slow starter.
He is.
And it's not because he chooses to. It's because, or no, it is because he chooses to. It's not because he's just a slow starter. It's he wants to read his opponent and figure out what to do. You can't read Sean O'Malley. You can have a 5-round fight, and maybe by round 4 you figure out what he's going to do. So that's going to be really hard for him. But I hope Petr Yan says, no, I'm just going to come in hard. Throw with a lot of volume.
That would be so fun, I hope.
And that would be a great way to beat Sean O'Malley. If he wants to beat Sean O'Malley, do something that not a lot of his opponents have done and come in and strike him. Petr Yan, I mentioned his Muay Thai. Big part of Muay Thai is low leg kicks. What has Sean O'Malley struggled with? Leg kicks. And I don't think it's because Sean O'Malley has real skinny legs, even though he does. I think it's because he doesn't check his kicks. Now, in his last fight, we saw him check kicks more than he usually had, and it still looked like it was affecting him. But you got to check those kicks. I mean, this is especially versus a guy like Petr Yan. Petr Yan will also have his striking coach in this match, which I think is big. He's been struggling to get his visa. He's got his visa now, so he'll be in the corner, and that's going to help a lot. Now, I'm not doubting Sugar Show. If anything, I said a lot of reasons why he should win. But Petr Yan, in my mind, I like to call him Petr robbed because I genuinely think that he beat Aljo. But maybe no, okay. But it was I don't know. I call him.
It's a close fight. It's a very close fight.
I mean, I know I'm the unpopular opinion, Tori. I understand I'm the unpopular opinion, but Petr robbed. If anything, maybe he's not the champ. He's the number one contender. He is very, very good. He is proven. Sean O'Malley, what's he proven? Not much.
Yeah.
But I got to pick Petr Yan, even though I'm not doubting Sean O'Malley, and I will be cheering for Sean O'Malley on Saturday night.
For sure. I mean, this fight, it's so exciting just because of the fact that it is 3 rounds and how much that 3 rounds can benefit the Sugar Show. I think the biggest thing that Petr Yan has to do is, like you said, go out in the first round and just do him. You cannot warm up against Sean O'Malley because we saw Chris Montino try to warm up to Sean O'Malley for 3 rounds and he got his butt kicked. Okay, it looked like he was trying to figure him out. He can't do that because Sugar Show will hit you with those straights again and again and again and again, and it will wear on you. It will. The biggest factor in this fight is when I look at the Sandhagen fight, which makes me think that it gets a little closer. It's because Sandhagen won those first 2 rounds and he looked great in those first 2 rounds. The third round's a little iffy, but I thought Sandhagen took that. And I mean, that's what's really the biggest factor is that this is 3 rounds. Petr's not going to have those 2 rounds to catch up.
Right.
But once again, Sean O'Malley hasn't proven to me that he has the ability to beat Petr Yan, because you look at Petr Yan's records, he has wins against Uriah Faber, Jose Aldo. I mean, technically the first fight against Aljo, I'm just gonna say that was a win. I'm sorry, he did beat Aljo in that first fight, even though that was unfortunate. And then Corey Sandhagen, he looked great in that fight as well. It was a hard fight for him, but that's also Corey Sandhagen. Corey Sandhagen has been up there with the top dogs in the division. Sean O'Malley simply has not. Literally the main thing on this fight is I think if Sean O'Malley, this is the best possible case for Sean O'Malley just because of how they're both strikers. It's just the experience, I think, and how Petr Yan didn't necessarily like dominantly lose his last fight. It's not like he's on like a downfall or anything. He's still at the top. He's still the top dog in the division. He is still an amazing, amazing fighter who's ran through everyone and was dominant for a little bit in the UFC in terms of being the champion. I mean, it's such a hard fight to pick. It's a hard fight to pick because it's like, do you believe it's almost like, do you believe in Sean,
right,
or you're just gonna kind of go in the safe thing? And I think I might stick with Petr, even though it would be crazy if Sean won it. I think he can do it. I mean, if he stays at the distance and just kind of uses those, I think, just like straight shots. I think he should use a lot of body shots if he can, like a lot of body kicks and stuff like that, because I think that'll get to Petr, kind of shut him down from there. Even maybe look for that liver shot that people have been throwing recently. Do you know what I mean? To just shut him down like that. It's just, I don't know. I think if it goes to decision, I'm going to say Petr, but I think Sean could actually get him out of there. I think just because of who the Sugar Show is, and I just think just because of the luck around it, I think he literally could be the person to get Petr out.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a pick and fight as well. It really depends on how you see this fight. Do you believe in the Sugar Show, or do you like no way, blah blah? It depends on the type of fan. And so, like I said, decision, I'm gonna go Yan, but I honestly believe that Sugar Show has the ability to finish him, especially if he gets those straight shots down the pipe. I think he can.
And Tori, something else I was just thinking about. We both watched Aljo Yan 2. When Yan can easily get in his own head, and it shows when he fights, and that's something I noticed in that fight. And I just was not thinking about that. Remembering those times he was upset in the corner and he came out, and it showed in his fighting.
Yeah, it's almost like case,
if that's the case for Sean O'Malley, that is not good for Petr Yan, because if there's one thing about Sean O'Malley, as much as he is a character outside of the octagon, he is a very composed and calm fighter on fight day. You would think Sean O'Malley would be the kind of guy to have a fun entrance. And not obviously he might pick a good song every now and then, but when he comes out, he's hood up, serious. Like, he is very serious. He comes in the cage. He's not celebrating when people say his name. He's serious. He's no joke. And he's usually very composed in his corner. So even
Yeah.
if Sean O'Malley can get in Petr Yan's head, that's
Mhm.
going to let Petr's guard down. Not necessarily in terms
Yeah,
of he won't be as good a fighter, but his strategy might go out
for
because he wants
sure.
to do something personal, which we've seen from Petr Yan. So that's all the more reason I want to pick Sean O'Malley,
Yeah, it's hard.
but I'm not
It's
going
really
to.
hard. It's like the head and heart thing, you know. And also know
Oh
things.
yeah.
Petr Yan has to take him seriously because
Yeah.
a part of me thinks he won't. A part of
Yeah.
me thinks he's gonna be like, oh, well, Sean O'Malley, like I'm the number one contender. I'm like the former champion. I'm just gonna go out there and destroy. Because that's not the case. When I say anything can happen in MMA, anything can happen
No,
in
we've
the
seen
sport
it.
of mixed martial arts. We have seen it. Look at Leon Rocky Edwards. Look at Nate Diaz against Tony Ferguson. I mean, even I didn't expect that to happen at
Right.
all. Anything can happen within the sport. And so, I mean, I hope he's taking this fight because if it's like Petr Yan, like title defense, like blah, 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 I think he can take it. But I'm just saying, just because of the position that Sean O'Malley is in, I think Petr might. I mean, how do I don't know Petr Yan, but I'm just saying this is like it could happen that he's just not taking it seriously,
Yeah.
or that he might kind of like goof around a little bit too much and Sean's just gonna catch him, or he might do some little dances in there and Sean's just gonna catch him because I think Sean is taking this fight. I think this is the most serious he's taking this fight, and he knows the danger of Petr. And Sean couldn't be in a better position. Petr's in the worst one because if Petr loses, his career goes down the pipe. Whereas if
Right.
Sean wins, he probably most likely 1000% is going to get next title shot. But if he loses, hey, he went up and faced the number one contender at number 13 when he didn't have to, when he hasn't fought all these people. So if he loses with pride, he's fine. And if he
Yeah.
wins, even better. Whereas Petr, if he wins, it's kind of like, oh, we expected that. And if he loses, everyone's like, wow, like this dude sucks. And
Right.
so it couldn't be a better situation for O'Malley, and it couldn't be a worse one for Jan to BH. So it's a hard fight. I think I'm still gonna go with Jan, but I definitely do think that Sean O'Malley, I think he could get it done, but I'm still gonna stick with my gut and say Jan.
Yeah. Low risk, high reward for Sugar Sean.
Yes.
Tori, what was it? We could talk about this fight all day. So
Yes.
I'm gonna push the pace. I know one of your favorite fighters is in the co-main. Aljamain Sterling taking on T.J. Dillashaw. Tori, give me your breakdown and prediction for this fight.
I hate this card because I can't confidently say anything. Like I honestly can't. Like I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, because I'm saying this for every fight, guys. I don't know. It's so hard. That's what makes this card so good. It's because it's not even based off of the personalities of this card. If you're a true fight fan, you know that the style matchups of these fights are top tier.
Right.
Okay. Like this fight, who do I want to win? I know who I want to win. Who do I think is going to win? I have no idea. I want Aljamain to win because I love his podcast. I listen to them all the time. I love his little YouTube and his little TikTok. He's such a cool person. T.J.Dillashaw, not the biggest fan, but the former champion, former two-time bantamweight champion. This is a hard fight to match because you have Aljamain, who literally calls himself the human backpack. And that's the biggest differential in this fight is I think if he gets TJ's back, I think he takes it, and I think he's going to hold him there for 5 rounds, and I think it's going to be the same as the Petr fight. I think he might potentially get TJ out of there, and also his striking is looking a lot better. He's throwing a little bit of winged shots against Jan, and I think he's been working on it, and so I'm excited to see how that is. The biggest thing is going to be the striking. I mean, also the wrestling. I'm not too worried about TJ's wrestling just because of how good Aljo's ability to get the back is, because he can really do it from anywhere, and he's just so skilled when it comes to jiu-jitsu. But I mean, TJ, it's almost hard to root against him as well. But we don't know how good TJ is right now. This sounds bad, but during his run, most of the time he was most likely enhanced with some stuff, like you feel like that's not great. So we don't fully know. And that last fight against Sandhagen, I thought Sandhagen won. I thought he won. TJ looked a little bit gassed out by the end. He's getting hurt more often, and I just think it's going to be a big factor because Aljo has good cardio and he will keep on going, and Aljo will always look for that submission. And I think it's going to be a very interesting fight. I don't think we're going to see that much striking. I think it's going to be based off control time and kind of who's getting that control. And I think it might be Aljo because TJ could take him to the fence, but I think Aljo will get the ability to get it to the floor and get a hold of TJ's back, because I think TJ has the striking advantage in this fight. I just think Aljo overall is younger. I think he's just healthier in general. I think he's kind of like wants to prove something to the world, and I think he can and TJ hasn't fought for that long. And you look at how easily Aljo got Sandhagen out of there. Also, I know MMA math doesn't work that well. You look at how easily Aljo got Sandhagen out of there in the first round submission, and TJ had a really hard time with Corey Sandhagen. And so, me personally, can't even say I think. I want Aljo to win. I want Aljamain Sterling to I want Aljamain Sterling to win. And I mean, I think TJ could take it, and that'd be cool if there was a 3-time bantamweight champion. But I personally, I do believe that Aljamain will take it, and I don't necessarily think it's gonna be the most entertaining fight. I think Aljo's gonna do what he does best and get the back.
Tori, for a pick'em fight, you seem pretty confident in Funkmaster here.
Okay, I'm not very confident, but like it's a hard fight because I don't know. It really depends on the striking. It really depends on the striking, how well it goes and how long they strike for it, like how much time they spend on the feet in each round. That's what's going to kind of determine it for me. But for now, I'm kind of basing it for if it goes to the ground, because if it does, which I really think it will, I'm going to go Aljo.
Tori, I'm going to give you a little bit of food for thought. Just some things to think about. T.J. has only lost to the best in the division, really, of all time. I think he looked great versus Sandhagen in terms of how tough he still is.
Yeah.
And when it comes to me talking about T.J. Dillashaw and breaking him down, he has the best footwork that the UFC has ever seen. He does a great job staying on the outside angle. His kicks are really, really good as well. Not just his low kicks, but his high kicks, his head kicks with his left and his right. He also has a really good takedown defense, 86%, which is very, very important in this fight. And his cardio is also excellent. And we were still able to see how his cardio is pretty good and how tough he was versus Sandhagen. Aljo, really good grappler, who learned to strike. And if Aljo gets it on the ground, I think we can both agree he's probably going to win. He's taking the back. He is so good, Tori, at being able to take the back.
Keep you there too.
Yeah, I would say his striking is pretty odd, but effective is how I describe it. He switches up kicks and range punches, and he'll close the distance and shoots takedowns, but doesn't strike. So how I talk about my favorite style of wrestler strikers are ones that are like boom, 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 level change, take a shot. He's like range fighter, strike, light kicks, and then just comes in.
Yeah.
And closes range and then shoots, which is very unique. I like it though. I mean, it's cool. It's cool. If Aljo can get takedowns, he wins. We can both agree on that.
Yeah.
TJ's been taken down twice in his entire career. Just twice.
Yeah.
2-time champ, only been taken down twice. He's been taken down as many times as he was champion. I don't see this fight going on the ground as much as you think, Tori. And I mean, TJ's a literal legend. And even if TJ does go on the ground a couple times, I think he can dog it out. What TJ's been able to prove is how tough he really is. Yeah. And I think every round that's on the feet that TJ can have, which will be more than you think, he might be able to win at a 10-8 because I think he's that better of a striker.
No, when he is. Yeah, he is.
And it's tough. It's a tough pick. And you mentioned a great point where Sterling feels like he's got a chip on his shoulder. Still, he shouldn't. He's a proven champ. Even though I can make as many Petr robbed jokes as I want to, he's the proven champ. He is the champ. He got a chance at the belt for a reason, and he won his second match. But T.J. Dillashaw, you want to talk about proving something?
Yeah,
this guy.
I mean, if he wins, he's gonna be the best bantamweight of all time.
Not only that, but the thing is, he's the villain. He is a villain in UFC. USADA, that messed him up. Him able to come in clean on these drug tests, hopefully, assuming he does, coming in clean, beating a very good Aljamain Sterling, and being able to prove the belt and say on the mic, I won this fair and square based off my hard work, is really, really something to prove. So the toughness, the cardio, and the striking are going to be my reasons that I take T.J. Dillashaw in this fight. But it's very, very close because Aljo is that dangerous on the ground. I just think in a 5-round fight, I'm not saying I think Aljamain's cardio is bad because I don't, but it's not as good as TJ's from what I've seen. And I think if TJ can keep it on the feet more than on the ground, Aljamain Sterling isn't the most impressive wrestler. He's a control wrestler. I don't know how the judges score that compared to the striking. Obviously, the submission is the biggest threat to TJ on the ground. more so the control time. Overall, if this fight goes to decision, I'm gonna have to go with TJ.
Yeah, I mean, this like when I was saying this fight is hard because the reason why I side with Aljo so much is just because I'm a fan of him himself. Like I'm a fan of just him. I know you always separate like fighters and people, but like I'm just a big fan of Aljamain as a guy. And so
Right.
it's a hard fight to pick because I'm not a fan of TJ as a person. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that's gonna difference, but it is the truth. TJ, if it does stay on the feet, I think TJ's gonna take it all day. Aljamain couldn't really stand with Petr Yan. And the thing is, people are like, this fight's going to be very different from Petr. I mean, it's going to be like the same as Petr. It's not going to be the same at all because of how good TJ's wrestling is. Because of TJ does have the ability to go to the floor. TJ is not just his base is wrestling. He's not really like he's not fully known for a strike. His base is wrestling. He's an amazing wrestler. So that's going to be a big problem for Aljo. TJ also has something to prove to the world. It's such a hard. It's hard, but then again, also TJ hasn't fought for a year. He was injured. What if Aljo does attack the knee? What if he attacks his weak points and he, like it's just stuff like that where it's like, what if this? What if that? It's you know what I mean? It's back and forth. So I'm kind of hoping this fight does end in a finish. I'm hoping Aljo submits him, which I don't know if it's gonna happen or not, but I mean I'm kind of hoping. He's made some good points. It's just it's another hard fight to pick. I mean, I'm rooting for Aljamain. I'm rooting for Aljamain. I think he's going to win, but I'm not confidently saying that. I'm not confidently saying Aljamain is going to destroy. I think TJ also does have the ability to take Aljamain Sterling. He does have the skill set. I'm going to go with Aljo though, just because he is camp, because of how good his ground game is, and who knows if his striking improved. It could have. You never know. And so, and he could also his wrestling. He is his wrestling could improve too, especially training with Muradov and everything, and being Muradov's partner. I think it could improve a lot, and so I'm excited to see this fight. It's going to be very fun, but. Now, onto the main event.
Let's get into it.
Of the evening. We have Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. What are your thoughts on this fight for the lightweight championship belt?
Matchup for the vacant title. Who is going to get the title on Saturday? Charles, on his way to being the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter of all time. And if he can get a win, is in the discussion to be better than Khabib. And if he's in the discussion to be better than Khabib, that puts him in the GOAT conversation. Speaking of GOAT conversation, episode 7 of Not Your Everyday MMA, Tori and I talk about who we think the GOATs of MMA are in the UFC specifically. Check out that episode. Still good. So, a little plug bell there. But that's Charles, right? Obviously, besides his submissions, which are just beautiful, he's a powerful striker when he wants to throw. However, more times than not, he gets a little too excited in those striking matches and he gets caught. And it's pretty scary because most of the time he'll drop. He averages a little more than 2 takedowns a fight, only a 40% takedown defense. The thing with Charles is he doesn't have to get you on the ground to submit you. He's dangerous everywhere. So if he takes a couple shots and misses them, he might just get on your back and choke you out. So that's kind of why that stat's a little lower. And he's also not always taking the shots that he gets the submissions. But I think out of his 16, he got the takedown 14 times, and he only got taken down twice and got the submission. So it's not as crazy as the stats you think, but I could be completely wrong on that. That's all from my brain. Islam, he's a beast. Probably going to have a little bit of a home court advantage. He's Muslim population are very strong. We've seen how they back Khabib, and that's main thing there in Abu Dhabi. So he's probably going to have that going for him. Islam, who has not even fought that much in the UFC, is one of the best Sambo fighters in UFC. I said this on an earlier podcast today when I was trying to explain Sambo. It's basically if wrestling and judo had a baby. I think that's a pretty good explanation. I like it. I'm trademarking it. It's my own. But when Islam leans towards his judo, he's way more successful. He has good trips. He has good single legs. He's also a really good striker. I don't know if he's as powerful a striker as Charles, but maybe a little more technical. My worry with Islam is he will work for a takedown for a long, long time. And in a 5-round fight, he can get really worn out. and that leaves options for Charles to snatch a submission. He averages 3 takedowns a fight, and a lot of that has to do with sometimes a long grappling exchange where he's just looking for a takedown for so long. And not only that, but sometimes it's because once he gets you taken down, he has position for a really, really long time. So it's not like he's shooting a bunch of takedowns every fight. Anyway, Tori, I've said many, 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 many times, I'm done betting against Charles because he proves me wrong every time. And I just feel like a stupid idiot because I always pick against him. And then I'm like, well, I should have picked Charles. Not doing that next time. Done doing it. But I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it one more time. I'm gonna do it one more time. I'm picking against him. It's my last time. If Charles proves me wrong here, I will never bet against him again. He could be in the UFC at the age of 70, and I will still be picking Charles Oliveira if he wins. I'll be done picking against him, but I am picking against him here, Tori. I've been wrong like the past 5 times. Hopefully not 6. Look, I think Islam is that dude. If there's anybody in that division that's going to beat Charles right now, it's him. The only 2 people I see beating him are Alexander Volkanovski and Islam Makhachev. That's the only 2 dudes. And I think Islam has got his number. I think that he can get him on the ground. His pressure in the wrestling is going to be better. All he needs to do is avoid the submission. Easier said than done, but I think he can do it. Also, Charles' chin, it's sus. It scares me. And the other thing that scares me is how Charles isn't worried about this fight. Charles says, no, I'm going to finish him in the first round. Islam, he's not even the toughest opponent I fought. Are you serious, Charles? I hope that's not what you actually think in your brain and you're just trying to get pay-per-view sales here, because if that's your mindset, you're done, bro. Islam is no joke. Even if Charles is on his back, I don't think that he has an advantage against a guy like Islam. I see Islam being able to avoid the submissions, beat him on the ground in the 5-round fight. So I'm going with Makhachev here.
Okay. And I'm surprised. I'm shocked. I didn't know you were picking Islam.
I know.
My
do it up.
biggest argument for this fight is I don't think Islam is the toughest competition Charles has fought. I mean, or he hasn't proven himself to be the toughest competition that he has fought, because once again, look at his past. Because people are saying like you did, but many people are saying Islam Makhachev will smash Charles Oliveira. My question is to these people is, what is your argument for that? What is your argument that he will smash him? Because if you look at his past 2 opponents, who are probably the most name-worthy people that he has fought, in Dan Hooker and in Bobby Green, those last 2 opponents were short-term fights, especially for Dan Hooker. Just came off of a 3-round fight, won that one, had to fly to Abu Dhabi, do a training camp, not even at his home base, and train for Islam Makhachev, a complete wrestler, the opposite of Dan Hooker, and Islam finished him in the first round, of course, because he took that fight on no joke a month notice and didn't even get to go home. Then you got Bobby Green, who had just fought 3 rounds at UFC 270, I believe, or no, UFC 271. Just fought then, a week notice. Bobby Green takes that fight. He gets a week to rest, doesn't even get a training camp, and just goes in and fights Islam. And Islam finishes in the first round. There's no surprise there. There is no one that Islam has fought to prove.
You throw Drew Dober in there too.
Drew Dober is.
Arm
I mean, he fought. Okay, yes, but look at Islam's past 10 fights compared to Charles Oliveira 10 fights and who they have dominated. You know what I mean? In the terms of each fight, that makes sense. I mean, it's just, I can see why people think Islam is going to win. It's just when they have the argument of like he's going to smash Charles Oliveira, I'm like, what is your point and how can you prove it? Because what is the level of competition that he has fought?
They both won their last 10 fights.
They have, but look at the level of competition between their last 10 fights, and look at the situation with their opponents within the last 10 fights. You know what I mean? It's just it's hard because
You're right, Tori. I will look at Charles' last few fights.
Yeah,
he's gotten knocked down in all of them. Yeah. And I don't like to say that luck is a thing because it's not a thing. But Charles has been able to capitalize on every single opportunity, which call him the maximum optimist. I don't know what I'm trying to say. He's always able to take position every time.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be the time versus Islam. I'm not trying to cut you off, but you asked the question, Tori. You said, I don't know what Islam has proven.
No, I
Well,
know.
this is what he's proven to me.
No, yeah. Yeah, it's a hard fight. It's one where even I'm a big fan of Charles Oliveira. I think this is the hardest stylistic matchup for him. It's just for when he
Mhm.
says it, I kind of understand where he's coming from because of just the caliber that he's fought in his last couple title defenses, even though he's not technically the champion. He's a people's champ, so I'm just gonna say the lightweight champion. But this is the hardest just because of how good Islam's wrestling in his sambo. It's amazing. He's powerful and he's technical. He's a technical striker. I do think Charles is going to finish him. And I do think Charles is either going to submit him or I think he's going to or knock him out. I'm kind of leaning towards a knockout because if you look at Charles, I think the big differential in this fight, as I said before, is going to be the striking. And Charles Oliveira has now worked himself up to be one of the better strikers or even one of the best strikers within the lightweight division. If you saw the interview with Justin Gaethje, he said, I've never been hit like that before. And you look at the caliber of Justin Gaethje has fought. And Charles Oliveira has been finished. He has 8 losses. He's been knocked out, blah, blah. That was at featherweight, and he's rebuilt himself. Islam has also been knocked out. He's not like a Habib where he's been unstoppable. He's been knocked out before. And that's like people use that against him because they can. Habib never got knocked out. He was undefeated. He did go through everyone. Islam has faced adversity before. He has gotten hit and like I said, he did like I think that's like not really a reason, but he does have that on his record, and he is sometimes a little bit hittable. And I think the biggest thing is Charles Oliveira's pressure is insane. It is crazy. He is constantly moving forward, almost like a walking zombie. And I think he's just gonna hit him with some blows that Islam doesn't expect to come from Charles Oliveira. I'm sorry, I'm almost done. And then it's just Islam's
Keep going. I
Islam.
love it.
I'm not even counting out Islam. Like I'm not because he could take this fight. I have a firm belief in heart. And I just think Charles Oliveira is like we always say is that dog. And I think he just has it in him to prove to the world that he is the best in the division because this man has faced adversity over and over again. And I think this is his final test to prove himself that he is the best lightweight ever. And I mean, he's not there yet. I think once this happens, he will be. This is such a hard fight to pick. Like once again, I can't even confidently say that 1000% Oliveira is going to win. I'm just saying I think he's gonna win, but it's not like Islam does have the capability to beat him, but I think the biggest asset in this fight is just going to be Charles Oliveira and who he is, where he comes from, and what he has done and what he has to prove to the people. Because I think Islam's already kind of proved to people, if that makes sense. I just think Charles wants it more, and I think that is going to be the biggest thing. I think he's gonna just be the dog, and I think he gets to the floor. He's great off his back. I think he might be able to find a submission, and on the ground, on the feet, I think he can get it finished. And I'm praying, but I don't know. This fight I'm so passionate about because I don't know. I won't know till that first round starts. I don't think anyone will, to be honest, to see how the fight's gonna go. No one really knows. It's that's what's so amazing about this fight is it's not popular based off their personalities. It's based off of how good and technical their fighting styles are and how good they compare against each other. So I am so excited. I think Charles is gonna take it. I'm hoping Charles is, but I'm not at all counting out Islam Makhachev. I'm not because he's amazing too. I'm gonna go Charles for this one, and I'm scared. I'm terrified actually.
Right.
I'm terrified for that. It's time. Okay, I'm freaked out. I'm like biting my nails already. Like I'm like shaky talking about it because it's this week.
So your point to the caliber of talent that Islam has faced compared to Charles is a great point. My only rebuttal is Islam didn't need to prove any other fight. He didn't need to beat a Dustin. He didn't need to beat a Chandler, a Fiziev. And obviously the matchmakers agreed with me. And obviously the betting world agrees with me because Islam's the betting favorite. So, and I'm not saying all that to say that that's a clear reason to pick Islam. I'm just saying that, yes, Islam didn't beat the caliber of talent that Charles has. And it's kind of hard, especially considering Charles is a defending champ. So he's was defending his belt, and Islam was working his way to get a belt. So Charles instantly has to fight the best guys, where Islam works his way up with a better guy each time. But we've seen this, right? We've seen it with Yuri. We're gonna see it with Bo Nickel. We're seeing it with Alex Pereira at the next card. We see these guys that just get these jumps because they really don't need to prove anything.
I mean, the Sugar Show too. This fight.
Look at Sean O'Malley. Look at Sean O'Malley, right? For Islam, I think it is that a lot of people are comparing him to Khabib, right? And that's the match. And I kind of want to talk about that real quick, Tori. And I didn't really take any notes about this, but it's all from the noggin right now. Khabib and Islam are not the same fighter. Just
They're
because they are
not.
both Dagestan wrestlers, they are not
No,
the
not
same.
at all.
I mentioned earlier that Islam will work for a takedown forever. That is not Khabib. You did
Mm-mm.
not watch Khabib work on the same takedown. Chain wrestling, that's a term that they like to throw around with that guy,
Mm-hmm.
Nurmagomedov. That's what he was. If he didn't get the takedown, he went for another one. He then went for another one. But Islam will work for the same takedown, and that's going to work to his advantage and his disadvantage because that's going to wear out Charles from having to defend a takedown that much. Charles' takedown
Mm-hmm.
defense is average. I think it's around
Yeah.
50%. I don't have the exact stat, but it's not really great. It's not really bad. So he's going to have to be defending that takedown, but the disadvantage is Charles might be able to look for a submission while you're trying to take him down, right? So I say they are very different fighters. I also say that Islam is more comfortable striking,
Yeah. Yeah.
where Khabib wasn't
For sure.
uncomfortable striking, but everybody
He
knew
didn't really
Khabib.
need to.
Yeah, he
I
didn't
think
want to
that's the
strike with you.
difference.
He wanted to
Yeah.
wrestle you. Islam, he's all right with striking. That's going to help him a lot versus a guy like Charles, who Charles, every single fight in his like last 6 fights, he wants to strike. That's
He
what
wants
he
to take your
wants
head
to do.
off. Yeah.
He wants to strike you. He said he wants to knock out Islam in the first round. That's how he wants to win this fight. He doesn't want
Yeah.
he said 16 submissions. That's enough. Let me get a knockout, right?
Yeah.
That's what he wants. So
Yeah.
it's a very, very hard fight to judge. But for me, I don't think, you know, it's interesting, right? Because you say, what has Islam proved, right? For me, my point is what has Charles proved? What has Charles proved in the sense of that he can beat a guy like Islam?
Mm-hmm.
Because he hasn't fought a guy like Islam.
Yeah.
When you look back at the losses that Charles had, which were way back in the day, he had the knockout to Paul Felder. Not gonna
Mm-hmm.
talk about that. His last loss besides that was a guy named Ricardo Lames. No one know if you ever heard of him. I haven't. Guillotine choke. That's how he lost. The fight before that, he lost to a guy named Anthony Pettis by guillotine choke. So Charles has lost by submission before. He's
Yeah.
also lost by knockout before. And Islam, it's tough. It's very tough because he's got one like loss on his record, and I don't know who it's against necessarily. I can't remember. Um, but it was like his first or second fight in the UFC that he lost. It's tough. I really don't know. But Charles, what I do know is Charles hasn't proven that he can beat a guy like Islam yet. And
Yeah.
Islam hasn't really proven
To
that
beat
he
a guy like
can
Charles.
beat a guy like Charles. So that's what makes
It's
this fight
yeah.
so hard to judge. So you have to look at it
Yeah.
stylistically, really. Whose style, it's kind of how they're one of the ways they're building this fight up. Sambo, Dagestan style versus Charles Oliveira Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
And strike.
Who
Yeah.
who's gonna win? And then there's
Yeah.
striking all on top of it, right?
Yeah.
To
I overall think
tough.
Charles is just I think he's a way better striker. I do. I think he just has more power. And I like I said before, I think that's gonna be the biggest
He
difference.
does have
If
more
Charles can
power.
keep his he and like it's crazy hearing Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje say this man has one of the hardest hitters we have ever faced. Because you wouldn't expect that. Charles Oliveira, like it doesn't
Right.
really seem like that'd be a game, but his striking is improving. And I think that I'm so excited for that first bell to ring, or not the first bell, but you know what I mean? Just
Yep.
the second they step foot and they touch gloves, because I honestly I don't know who until we see the first round. I can't confidently say it. And I would love to confidently say Charles Oliveira because I'm a huge fan of him, but I can't. The thing with Islam is that it's like it's once again, it's such a hard fight just because I don't think he's going to want to stand with Oliveira. I think right away he's going to look for that takedown. And I do think Charles is that good. I think he has the ability to, like, people are going to be saying casual, like maybe. I just believe in him. I think he could get the submission from anywhere. I do believe that he's that good. And I do think that he can rock him on the feet if it does say standing, even for a little bit. I think Charles just has that in him. And I think, like, it's just that hard. Like the bleach hair, dude, the bleached hair, I'm telling you, it works. Like, I think it's just that hard because he is a different fighter than he was before, and it can happen. We see that in MMA. Whereas in boxing, if you lose once, you're done. But then you have these underdog stories like Charles Oliveira come back. He had a kid. He's a changed person. I think he's unstoppable right now. I mean, like, he might get knocked down, but I think he can get back up, and I think he can get it. I in my heart, I really just think he can get it done. Like, I don't know if I fully believe it, but my heart's like, yes. I'm like passionate about this fight because
Right.
it's just such a good matchup. It's an insanely good matchup. And this is going to prove if he is the best lightweight of all time, even though Islam is not the same fighter. It's just they have the connected name, you know? And
Right.
so it's if Charles can do this, it's gonna be insane. Though the world is going to go crazy. All that I keep on knocking my microphone. The MMA world is gonna go crazy. They're gonna go crazy because it's gonna be the Bronx on top, but he has to get past Makhmud, and that's always gonna be the conversation. And if he does that, I don't think there's gonna be conversation if he's better than Khabib or not. I think people are gonna agree that he is a lightweight goat, and so
I
it's
will.
yeah, I will too. I mean, if you look at it and like the more title defenses, this fight has so much behind it. It has so much behind it. And so if Islam wins, Dagestanians are on top in the lightweight division. They always will be. And I'm just like, that's kind of the thing between this. And so I'm like nervous. Like I'm talking about it and I'm like, oh, because I don't know. And I want Charles to win, but I can't confidently say that Charles is going to win.
Right.
That makes sense.
No,
So,
I
and I
get
can't
you.
confidently say that Islam's going to win. I don't know.
So, Tori, before we wrap up this podcast, I want to ask you a question. Charles wins. Who's he fight next?
Oh, Dana White actually.
Charles makes weight and then wins.
Okay, first of all, we need to do a prayer that everyone makes weight. I'm sorry. Everyone better make weight for this fight. Everyone better be healthy. No one, if anyone gets hurt, I swear.
Right.
Anyways, continue.
Who does he take? Who do you think that Charles fights?
Volkanovski. Dana White announced it today, actually. He said whoever wins this fight is going to face Alexander Volkanovski, and Volk is going to fight for the lightweight title, and that is a whole different. That's a whole nother thing right there. That's the even worse pick'em fight for me.
Right.
Volk versus yeah.
See, for me, I think if Islam wins, I don't think he should fight Volk. I think that whoever wins, Chandler Poirier should have a shot at Islam, unless if Islam and Charles is a really, really close fight and they're going to run it back, which I don't see happening. It's going to be an obvious win. Finish. Yeah, it's going to be, and if it's a decision, it's unanimous, and there's some 46-50s in there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I want to see Islam take on Volk, but Volk versus Charles, that's a match I want to see really, really bad. Tori, that looks like that's gonna wrap it up. I mean, this card is so stacked. I'm so excited for it. We disagree on the main and co-main event, so could be a tie, could be one of us walk out victorious and the other walks out the loser.
I'm going hashtag in still. Even though Charles isn't is no necessary thing, I'm going hashtag in still for this weekend.
He's getting the crown.
I think so.
All right. Well, guys, that has been episode 9 of the Not Your Everyday MMA podcast. If you're new here, we hope you enjoyed. We do a weekly podcast every week. We got some big things planned. I'm not going to say yet, but some big things planned nonetheless. We're going to try to get some more interviews in, and we'll always be breaking down the UFC fights. So subscribe, like, comment. We appreciate all those things. Tori, you got any closing remarks about UFC 280?
I'm freaked out. That's it. Like I'm terrified. Everyone make weight. Everyone, if I know none of you, if by chance one of you, everyone make weight. Everyone be healthy. Don't trip over any cords because I swear I'm gonna cry if an event gets canceled on this card and you don't want to see me cry. It's gonna be ugly. So you better make weight and be healthy. Okay, knock on wood right now that this event, everything's gonna happen.
Yeah,
that's all I'm gonna say.
Nope, I agree, guys. That's gonna be it for episode 9 of Not Your Everyday MMA podcast. My name's Alex Henry, and I was with
Tori Haprel.
And we are signing off, guys. Have a good one and enjoy this weekend, this Saturday, UFC 280 at Abu Dhabi.